atu. Te waipaunamu hoki, tēnā rā koutou katoa. Ko koutou rā ngā ihu o te waka, e wāhi ana I te ngaru o tēnei moana, nō reira kia kaha, kia māia, kia manawa nui, kia ora ana, talofa lava, palolelei, whakalofa lahi atu, malo ni, wholaminaka. Kia ora tātou, tēnā koe lani.
Thank you, Te Mahinga. Sorry, I'll just get the slides back. Having a bit of problem. Right, so we sing our waiata?
Me waiata tātou. Makura pia, makura pia, maku koe e awhie, ki te ara, ara tupu, maku koe e awhie. Ka pai, this is us everybody. Welcome to first session. Over to you now, Lily. Kia ora.
Thanks. Thank you so much. So we're just going to talk a little bit about the team, introduce who we are. It would be really good if you just didn't move the slides for now or change the presentation, little button at the top on the right where it says stop sharing, and then we'll give you an opportunity if you want to ask a question in the chat. Herbert is answering those, or you can put your hand up to ask a question and we can stop and answer those. There will be time at the end for you to answer questions. So I'm not sure why some people can't hear me and some people can, but it might be your mics, your sound. I'm not sure about that. So these are the staff that will support you. So Florence, you might remember from the sorry.
That's because everyone's made a moderator.
I'm not quite sure why.
Yeah.
Right. So Florence is our postgrad coordinator. You might remember her from the DCL, so she will be there to help you with any queries around things, and she kind of organises lots of logistics and supports us. Jana is our portal assistant, so she's dedicated just for the MCE. She's based in Christchurch. She's really friendly and will be able to help you. Tino is our National Academic Registrar, so you might remember her from the DCL as well, but she will be behind the scenes as such. Academically, we've got kind of this team of 5 at this stage. So Herbert Thomas, who some of you will have met doing the interviews, based in Christchurch. Jonathan Lynch, based in Dunedin, also would have met doing interviews. Te Mahinga, you just met before doing karakia, is helping us with lots of things. Craig Hilton is our National Academic Director, so he is kind of in charge of the master's programs and in charge of academic quality. And myself, Lynley, I'm based in Tauranga, and we will be helping you with this. Sorry, Te Mahinga is based in Hamilton and Craig on Waiheke Island. So we're spread around the country. To contact us, easy, 0800 the Mind Lab, and you'll be able to select the Masters MCE, or 0366 0088 to get to Christchurch and get to Jana. And if you'd like to email us, mce@themindlab.com, or you can email myself or Herbert directly, and we'll get back to you. Or obviously you can post things in Google+. I'm not sure why people don't have sound. Herbert can do it. I'll keep going. So then we're just going to talk about the program. Sorry, I jumped just a little bit. And a little bit of structure around some of the things. It's a little bit complicated and quite different to the DCL. So it just takes a little bit of explaining, but you'll get it. just wait to see if I can get Billy to... It's next to her name, I think, isn't it, Herbert, that she ticks. The structure here, so we're talking about the learning that we put on the portal. Some of you might not have had a chance to look at that yet, but the learning is structured in sprints. So what was the weekly content in the DCL? This won't necessarily be new information every week, but the learning will, might last from a week to 2 to 4 weeks. They'll be structured in what we're calling sprints. Within that, if you've seen the learner journey, you'll see we have these little icons to describe different components of the program and things that we're going to participate in. One of those is online sessions, and that is this little yellow key. It's like what we're on today. The blue is workshops, and in the learner journey it just signifies when the school holidays are, and those days will be notified closer to that time. There will be peer presentations along the way, formative assessment and summative assessment, which we'll talk about shortly. There are different platforms, so we have a couple of different platforms, slides. We'll talk about one now and one a bit later on. These you'll be familiar with. The portal, obviously, looks different to DCL. We've structured it differently. There is a learner journey overview, which gives you on the front page an overview of all the things in the different courses that you're going to be doing that week, any relevant information or things you might need to be thinking about. But then that is also stored in a course, like behind that green button, where you can access the information, because as that information gets taken off that page, it's also in that other course. So there are 3 courses running concurrently at the moment: leadership and practice, collaboration and practice, and contemporary teaching. And so there will be sprints associated with those 3 courses. Sometimes they will intertwine, but all the information is going to be on the portal. The way we've structured the sprints in the portal, you'll get to see is quite a similar structure, I suppose, and kind of we've got rid of some of the pages, so we've got rid of the task page that's now at the bottom, but the structure is really similar and you'll be able to follow that as you go. And the media and the related links are all embedded in the page rather than underneath, so it's kind of easier to manage, we hope. Google Plus, lots of you have already been into Google Plus, which we're really excited to see you being, introducing yourselves and welcoming each other. So there's the Google Plus community, obviously the library, and this Blackboard Collaborate session that we're working on now, which we'll often use for online sessions. So those kind of 4 platforms that you know. We have in the program the self-directed learning. So just to explain that a little bit, that will be scaffolded and expand as you go through the course. So we're starting off with quite structured and scaffolded sprints, and you'll see in the portal it's quite explicit what you need to be doing, what you should be reading, the things that we want you to kind of produce. As we go on, those sprints will be less structured but still scaffolded, and then you'll get to this kind of point where actually you'll be able to choose elective sprints and sprints that you might be interested in. So we'll give you a range of sprints and you can choose from, then you'll get to kind of the point where you can design your own. So if you're looking at a particular topic you're interested in, then you'll have some agency around what that learning will be around. All of this in part 2 is being developed towards your scope, which is your project plan for part 3. And in each of the 4 courses which we do in part 2, you develop a component for that scope. And so all of the learning, all of the assessments, all of the learning outcomes kind of tailor towards that scope. And so you'll see that as we go. So we're going to talk about the ACO, the learning, and I'll hand over to Johnny.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Cool. Okay, thank you. welcome everybody. This is just a little bit of detail about the learning that we've got on the sprints for the courses, and I'll talk you through how we imagine those to be working with you. So the first slide is a quote from Stephen Covey's book about 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and the start with the end in mind is really crucial, we think, because that refers to the last part of the master's course, which is the level 9 capstone project. So as a way of sort of framing maybe the kind of educational attitudes that we were hoping to just really develop and encourage in you, which I mean, we're sure you'll be taking this really seriously and be very active and being a really good self-motivated learner. But the end point is a level 9 6 credit part of the course. So that's, if you compare it to the DCL, for example, that's about the same size as the DCL on its own, and it's level 9. So we will do a lot of work with you to scaffold your learning and to develop your skills so that you're able to tackle that really well. And there's scoping components to the final project that are like assessments that appear regularly throughout the course, the program, which will help do that. But we just want to be really explicit right from the outset to say that's where you're going. So be bold about your approach, and good sort of good academic skills and performance are what we're really trying to encourage. So that's a really great way, I think, of just setting you up with where you're heading as your end point right now at the very beginning. The numbers 27 versus 13 are to do with the hours of learning we think you'll be expected to do per week, depending whether you're full-time or part-time. So 27 hours a week would be the sort of hour learning amount we would think a full-time student would be expected to do, and 13 hours a week is part-time. And that includes all the sort of sprint activities and some of the peripheral stuff, right, like writing assignments and preparing for assignments. So we're trying to include everything in that, but just a good way of getting your head around that kind of question of, well, how many hours a week do I have to put aside to do this well? So that's about the project, and that's about the hours. So hopefully that gives you a good starting point about where you're going towards the end. Right. So the next couple of slides are about these things we're calling sprints. So if you may have come across these in the DCL when we were talking about them. We did do an Agile week, but I'll explain it all a bit more now, so that if you don't know, then you will do by the end of this session. So the writing in blue is telling you what a sprint is. It's a period of time between 1 to 4 weeks, which a specific element or chunk of work is chosen and focused on. So sprints involve self-directed learning. They have formal and informal learning activities you're going to engage in. And the diagram below is on the very left is kind of like the whole learning for the whole masters. And as you go across the diagram towards the right, the kind of courses and the programs and the content gets chopped up into smaller pieces until you get to these sprints, which are the circular element of the program at the end there. And the sprints are focused areas of educational activity and learning that you think you need to do. And as Lindley said, as you go on through the course, you'll probably find that you want to design some of your own sprints so you can learn about things that you're interested in. So the sprints themselves are really crucial because they form a sort of platform of learning that we expect you to do. So I'll talk to you more about what that is now. Is there anything else you want to add to that slide, Lindley, before I move on?
No, that's okay. I think it's good.
Cool. Okay. So the sprints, like I say, are self-directed, and we think there'll be 2 types of outputs that you'll do with sprints. The first output is the things that you will do that you're required to do. They're defined on the sprints themselves, which will be pages on the portal, a bit like sort of class notes that you had on the DCL experience. And the actual required outputs, the outcomes of the sprints, will be things like posts on discussion boards, maybe posts on your portfolios that you have, maybe a review of some literature or some articles that you've read, and put that onto a Kupu, which is the online sort of Mind Lab journal club we have, which we'll talk about in a couple of slides' time, and or it could be a video you have to make. So there'll be required things, and there could be several of them. And we expect those to be things you'll focus on and definitely produce as a required element of the sprint. Then there's sort of the more informal learning, which is equally as important. But I always think about this a bit like if I've invested a couple of hours in reading about something, I don't walk away from that reading without taking notes or capturing it somehow, because I'll just forget it, or I'll never be able to capture it as well as I will do when I've finished the reading. So this is to try and encourage you to do that. So it could be, like I've written down here, taking notes and saving them, doing a bit of reflective writing. It could be something that you read really triggered some thoughts in you, and you just think, I'm going to capture that because that will be useful to me later on. Or, as I've alluded to, you might decide that you've read a couple of different articles about something, and you just want to try and produce a paragraph or two of nice sort of solid academic writing that has references in it that you could use later for your assignment. And the idea then is you would just start to drag and drop some of those paragraphs into your drafts of any assignments. That saves you the hassle of having to go back and make sense of your notes. So that could be something you produce, or it could be you've saved some searches, you've saved some terms that you've used on your own searching in the sprint, and you just have a little bit of a document with some of those terms on. So the suggestion are that if you make life easy for yourself and you capture some of this informal learning that you're doing in bits of writing, bits of reflective writing or producing academic writing, then that will really help build towards your assessments. And all your assessments will be written, of course, but it just helps to sort of give you a body of work that you've engaged in that you can draw on for your thoughts and your assignments in the future.
And,
so the sprints themselves, go ahead.
Sorry. I was just going to say, and that's things like that you could be adding things to your ePortfolio, like Herbert says in the ePortfolio video in the sprint. Your ePortfolio is for you, so it's about you recording and keeping. It can be notes. It doesn't all have to be, perfectly written or anything. Some of it might just be stuff that you've kind of recorded about something you've read. But thinking about the ePortfolio, the other discussion board posts and things to Cooper, which we'll talk about shortly, they help support your learning or evidence your learning. You can use them to support your assessments. You can use, so it's kind of a bit like a reflective journal in ways, but that's why we wanted it to be an e-portfolio rather than just a blog, because it's going to be this whole kit of things that support your thinking, your learning, things you've read, in one place really that you can use.
That's good. Good. Cool. Okay, so the next couple of slides are talking you through these sprints in some detail. So I've taken an example from the class notes on the portal for a sprint that's called Me, My Place, My Practice, My Intent. This is the leadership and collaboration, isn't it? This one. That's from that course. So at the beginning of it, there's a kind of funny little prefix, C1F. What that means is cohort 1, which is you guys, and F is full-time or P is part-time. So if you've enrolled as a part-time student, then the sprints you do should be the ones with P in the titles and the prefixes, and vice versa for the full-time students. So the sprint on the class notes has got some titles. I've put these in blue. I'll just talk you through each one so you can see what we're wanting you to do when you come across them. So learner story. At the beginning of the sprint, we've created a learner story, which is a statement that you could read by yourself, and it would say, I, as an MT candidate, I will, and it will describe what you will have learned as you've engaged with this sprint. So read that first. That sets an expectation of what you're going to learn while and after, by the time you've done the sprint. We put some learning outcomes, because that's quite common to see those in most educational documents. So we think it's useful to see the learning outcomes for that sprint, or what you're wanting to have specifically engaged with in terms of learning whilst you've done the sprint. Then the next title is Outcomes I Will Produce. So those are required. So whatever you do, you have to do those, and they will involve at least a couple of activities. Could be some writing, some contributions to posts, some videos you have to produce. Then under that, we've got learning activities and tasks. So again, this is about just trying to unpack some of the things we're asking you to do. So the activities and tasks that we've listed there will go into more detail about what you need to do to complete the sprint and definitely the required outcomes. So it breaks down a little bit more of the information that you need to do to achieve the required part of the sprint. So on the next slide.
Can I just add one
Yep.
thing in there? You're going to talk about the outcomes that you'll produce, and we give you these time frames. So you might get 2 weeks, or you might get a week, or if you're part-time, you might get 4 weeks, for example. Different sprints will have different time frames on them, and there is some self-managed learning in there. If it's not perfect by the time you get to that end of 2 weeks, it's not being assessed as such. So you don't feel pressure that, you can go back and fix it up. Or if you learn new things, you can add to it or amend it. It's not that that's then set in stone and concrete and that's what it has to stay like, for example. So it's kind of a living document, I suppose.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I think that also refers to the fact that the required bits, they can sometimes not feel like they're a tremendous amount. So I think that's right, isn't it? That some of the required tasks are deliberately not overly burdensome because we expect you to do quite a lot of other discovery and other important things along the way. But there's a minimum.
And some of that is stuff that will build. So it's a beginning. You'll add to it, and then you'll refine it or develop it as we go.
Yeah. So the sprints have got a bit more information on them towards the end as you go down through the information on the portal. So you'll see a title called Share Your Thoughts, and that might be, again, more detail on the depth and the range of the learning activities and tasks that we've set to you. The time frame will be dependent whether you're part-time or full-time. So full-time is normally half the amount of time that the part-time students have, because of course we think you've got twice as much time to do it. And then the Springboard resources are suggested initial resources that help you to engage with the learning and the topic. Quite often we'll put essential readings in there, maybe around key terms or sort of entry points into the topic or the context. But the idea is that you'll use them to find, or you will find further sources than then, but they're just to get you started. And then the points of departure are in some ways a little bit similar, but they're perhaps got a broader range of options. So they are topics and subjects and concepts that you'll use to explore more deeply and specifically in ways that relate to your context. Because a lot of the learning that we ask you to do is required to be considered within your context. So you might decide that there's some different areas you want to go off in, and those points of departure should help you to do that. Okay. And then, the assessments. Linda, did you want to talk about the assessments?
Sure. So we just wanted to signal assessments, because often it's something people talk about or worry about. We just wanted to signal that we're going to talk more about assessments in the workshops. You have quite a bit of time to kind of get your head around this. We wanted to point out a few key things. One of the most important, I think, is that we want you to think of the assessment as a learning activity and a way to kind of, with targeted feedback, because you'll get support from us, you'll get support from your fellow candidates, that you're meeting the requirements of the MCA program. They're all based around meeting the learning outcomes, building towards a graduate profile so that you can then be awarded with the Master of Contemporary Education. There are some key differences to the assessments compared to the DCL, which is what you've all been involved in. So the main one, I suppose, there is that they're competency-based, not achievement-based. So there are some real key differences in the fact that they are competency-based. It means that you would either get a pass with requirements or a pass or maybe a not yet competent type mark. Oftentimes with the nature of the project, practice-based project change, this practice-based learning, the assessments quite often will get a pass with requirements. So you've done a really good job here. We'd like you to add some other information in. So it's not a negative, but it's like formative feedback. So you've done this. Now if you add this, it will make it better. They're individual, the assessments in the Part 2 and Part 3 of the MCE. So whilst you could collaborate in DCL Part 1, we've taken a different slant on this. The collaboration will happen in the learning, and the assessments are individual, so you're going to evidence your learning through individual assessments. Partly that has kind of logistically, because everyone will be doing different topics, different projects, that what you do around that needs to be your own kind of thing. We have another difference which we just want to kind of iterate a few times, is we will have one due date for each assessment. So it's not like in DCL where you had kind of that 2 week, you could apply for that 2 week extension. Because of the competency based, because we're scaffolding you through this, because you have this kind of ability, I suppose you're passing with requirements, there is a due date, and the assessments need to be in then, and then you get support, I suppose, from there. Yeah, good question, Teresa. So if you're going to pass with requirements and then you meet those requirements, you're going to pass. So that's a really good question. Yeah, so for example, you handed something in and we said, okay, it'd be really good if you did this and this and this. You do that, then it just becomes a pass. All assessment items for each course therefore need to be passed, because what we're saying in a practice-based masters, this kind of masters, is you're right, you're competent or you're not. You can't, like in DCL where we could, you could miss one assessment, say 45 in that, and get 55 in the next one, and then you'd pass. This one you need to pass all those assessments, but we will work tirelessly to help you do that. Like, that's our goal, and one of our main impetuses in this is to support and scaffold your learning so that those assessments aren't to the point where you get to the stage where, I don't know what I'm doing. We'll be working through with you before the assessments are due. You can send them to us to share, to get some feedback. Some of these online sessions will be you talking with each other and us around how that assessment should look. So there'll be lots of support in order for you to get to the point where those assessments are passing with, potentially maybe passing with requirements or passing, but that's definitely there is a whole different feel. And I think within that formative assessment, the scaffolding through those assessments is key. And if you look at DCL, there's not a lot of formative assessment. In this, there will be lots of support. So you'll be put into collaborative peer groups. So you'll be perhaps in different ones, a location-based one, like a home group where you can get together with people that might live near you, or, build a relationship with people who don't live too far away, potentially. But also you might be put into other collaborative peer groups based on things you're doing that are similar or dissimilar, in order to help you scaffold your learning together. Anything I've missed on assessments, Herbert or Johnny? We'll talk about it in the workshop, so we'll give you more information. Just to signal, if you would have seen, or potentially should have seen, the learner journey overview, and there's an assessment breakdown. For example, the assessments for full-time is due in week 8. Part-time, that's double, so it's due week 16. So we've got lots of time before we need to be starting to kind of worrying about assessments. And we really didn't want you to be only concentrating on the assessments. The collaborative groups will be a mix, and I think we'll get mixed up. As I said, there'll be some location-based ones, but we also will look at, and over time, the collaborative peer groups, you will have, yeah, absolutely, Emma, ECE2, have some say in, working out. Yeah, well, sorry, Teresa, I just see your question. The workshops is a really good place. We're also going to, in the next email, send out a Google form for the next online sessions and ask you some questions, which then we'll be able to share with people about where people are located and some contact details and things, so you kind of can know where people are as such. It's very much about mahitahi and collaborating and building this community. What we recognised from the part 1 of the DCL is that what's so good about it is this cross-pollination of meeting like-minded people, meeting people who have completely different viewpoints to you, but from different schools, and hearing what other people are doing or not doing, and sharing and learning from each other. And so what we've planned, because the parts 2 and 3 aren't doing this regular 16 weeks of face-to-face where you really kind of get into knowing each other well, we're going to do this through these online sessions, through these collaborative peer groups, through the platforms that we have to support you, so that we can kind of still have this cross-pollination and this really supportive network where you're not ever feeling in a situation where you don't know what to do, you don't have anyone to turn to, and you're feeling all alone. We're here so that that doesn't happen, and some of the structures we're going to create to make sure that you're not kind of ever sitting there, struggling. So some of the collaborative platforms we have that you won't have seen, we have Slack, which we will invite you to in the Friday email. If you haven't used Slack before, it's kind of just an online chat messaging, instant messaging. It's really good. Within that, you'll be able to message us, you'll be able to message each other. It's different to Google+. So Google+ will be more of a social, oh, look what I found, look at this thing, sharing things like that, perhaps asking kind of just general questions. Or Slack we'll use for discussion threads. It's a really nice way to follow. You can have a channel and have everyone discussing posed questions and follow the thread of the conversation really nicely. But it's also a really good way for you to communicate with us or to communicate with your collaborative peer groups. We will have online office hours. You'll be able to make an appointment to see us. We'll have a session each week where people can drop in and have hangout type chats. You'll also be able to arrange appointments, smaller groups with us as well. And we have a new platform called the Journal Club Tuatukupu, and it's specially been created for us actually as the Master of Contemporary Education, and it's a platform that we're going to use to help you critique evidence and share ideas. So we'll introduce this platform to you in the workshops, but we think it's going to be really valuable to help your learning and support what you're doing. So those are some extra platforms we have set up that we will share with you. So I've talked a little bit about the collaborative peer groups already. The online sessions are like this. They will change in structure as we go. Obviously, this one is an introduction, so it's us just talking to some slides, but they will change and we will mould those as we go to meet the needs of you guys. Being agile, we want to build this support depending on who our candidate students are at the time and what their needs are. So the online sessions might change in the way they're delivered. Sometimes we might use smaller groups and hangouts. Sometimes we might use this Blackboard Collaborate session. It will depend. So I've talked about the platforms and I've talked about Tuatukupu. The workshops, we just want to signal if you haven't signed up for the workshop, the link is in the portal. We'll put another link in the weekly email. Christchurch is on the 9th, Wellington is the 10th, Rotorua is the 12th, and Auckland is the 18th. They all run from 10 to 4, and I think another slide. One of the key things we want you to do is the contemporary teaching sprint for those workshops. And projects are things that we're going to be doing, but your practice-based change project. So lots of things around that, I suppose, the support where you will be supporting each other in these kind of areas. So just the next steps. I'll answer that question shortly if that's all right, Rosie. The next step, so from here, obviously this is day 2 of the program, so we realise that lots of you have, if you have had a chance to look at the portal, you've only just had a chance. So I just wanted to explain a little bit around what's in there. There are 3 sprints, one for each course at the moment. So sharing, showcasing and evidencing my learning for collaboration and practice. and it's about creating an e-portfolio. Me, my place, my practice, my intent, really that's about, and I think I say this in the video, giving you an opportunity to really explore where you're at now. Where have you come over the last few years since you did DCL? What have you changed? How does your practice look different now to it did 5 years ago, for example? What are the things that were a struggle to change? What are the things that you changed, you can't believe that what's happened because of those changes? But it's really about giving yourself, a deep reflection about your practice, and what does that mean for you here, to kind of give you this baseline to think, okay, where am I going to go? What is my intent? It's okay if you don't know what that intent is. It might just be, well, I want to do my Master of Connected Education and I haven't thought about what I'm changing in my practice. That's fine. And then the third sprint, Futures of Learning, is in contemporary teaching. That sprint we would like you to have looked at before the workshops. So if you are full-time, those 3 sprints, you have 2 weeks to do those 3, plus we're going to add critical thinking for you next week, so you'll have those 4 sprints to do. If you're working part-time, we really would like you to work on the Futures of Learning. You can start looking at the other 2, but you have, I think, 4 weeks to get those completed and done. Critical thinking sprint you'll get in week 5. So you obviously in part-time have a lot more time to do some of the learning. The online sessions for week 2, we're going to make those Wednesdays and Thursdays. We really wanted the online sessions tonight because the program was new, and give you, a chance to welcome you and say hi, answer some questions, but explain a little bit of what's happening. The sessions going forward will really be a little bit later in the week, so we can kind of probe into questions you have or scaffolding some of the learning. After next week, those sessions are actually every fortnight, so you have time to kind of get your head into the learning before we're going, what's happening next type of thing. We've created a Padlet for you to link your e-portfolios on. So when you create your e-portfolio, there'll be this Padlet that you can access, and you can kind of go and see what other people are doing, look at ideas, see what their thinking is around, because it's this kind of, it's that, as I said before, cross-pollinating ideas and learning from each other and supporting each other. There's been quite a few questions about the best platform for e-portfolio. That's part of that sprint. We want you to go and explore, have a look. What can you investigate? Evaluate and critique different platforms and see what's out there. And the last little thing before I go to the questions is workshop. So we just want to point out again, book your spaces for weeks 3 and 4. So that's me talking. Now we were going to answer some questions. So I see there's been a few. Herbert, did you want to signal any of those questions that I said? The workshop in week 4 in Auckland, Shona, is on Wednesday, the 18th in Auckland. The future online sessions partly will be guided by you. We're thinking Thursday's a good day, but we just wanted to kind of get a feel from where everyone's at. Rotorua is Thursday, Shona. So Monday, the first week of the holidays, Christchurch. Tuesday, Wellington. Thursday, Rotorua. And then week 2 of the holidays is Wednesday, Auckland. Rosie had a question about some people who are away for these school holidays. So what we would like you to do is to let us know. So quite a few people talked to me about that in the interview, so we've already had a conversation about that. But ideally, the online sessions and the workshops are compulsory. Obviously, things happen, and sometimes, you can't come. We just want you to communicate with us and let us know. Yes, Cobus, the venue is Rotorua Boys High School Library. So that's nice and convenient for you. The location in Wellington is the lab in Petone. In Christchurch, it's the lab in city centre, and in Auckland it's Tech Futures Lab, which is in Newmarket. Are you talking about confirmation of the bookings for the online session or the workshop, Christian? You can ask a question on a mic too if you want to. We can send out confirmation of the bookings of the workshops. I think for the online sessions.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Yeah. No, it was just only because I think that going forward, if there's going to be a lot of bookings, sometimes, it's going to be quite confusing, and particularly because they're sometimes coming from two different places, the links to book. So, for example, for the session of today, I didn't know if I had to book again or not. So, from my point of view,
I think the point is we put it in the email because we knew people didn't have access to the portal before Monday, so we just wanted to signal that it was happening. I guess the challenge is sending it in the email is good for some people, but having it on the portal is an extra place. You certainly wouldn't have to book twice. Sorry, Shana's asked about the workshop. Does that answer your question, Christian? We can certainly let you know about the confirmation. I think that's a good idea. We will for the workshops.
Yeah, the only thing I was thinking is that because mostly you book through a Google form, just a little reminder, like you did and you booked it, just would be, just an automatic reply, nothing particular.
Right, sure. Yeah, that it's gone through kind of thing. We'll work on that. Any other questions about anything?
Oh, the show is asking about how many workshops. It's one workshop per. You only have to attend one workshop day. We've just got them running in different locations. That's right, isn't it? Oh, yeah, Herbert's answered that. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Should have read that.
Does anyone have any other questions about the learning? Any other things?
Can I ask a question about the going forward? Part-time is a process of basically 2 years. Mm-hmm. Is that actually flexible as well? Do we have to finish in 2 years? Can we go a little bit faster?
You would be able to, between part 2 and part 3, convert from full-time to part-time or part-time to
That was my question. Yeah, that was the question actually. Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, hi there, Scott here. Just got a quick question.
Hi, Scott.
Hi. Hi everyone. Just with the overview that's on the portal for the courses, would it be logical to think that the suggestion, the order that you've given us would be the logical order that we should do it in? If we follow that order for the overview, would that be?
Well, I think I'm trying to think. I put contemporary teaching first. What we would like is before the workshops that you've had a look at Futures of Learning.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are part-time student, then effectively you have, it says in the time frame, 2 weeks to do the Futures of Learning sprint, and 4 weeks to do collaboration and practice, which is the portfolio, and 4 weeks for me, my place, my practice. If you are full-time, effectively you have 2 weeks to do each of those, but we're also adding another sprint next week in contemporary teaching. So what the structure of the courses is collaboration and practice and leadership and practice go for all of part 2. Contemporary teaching goes for half, and then we switch to digital fluency. So the learning is condensed or faster in contemporary teaching.
Great.
Yeah.
Yep. No, that's wonderful. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. Yes, certainly, Bernie. We would avoid those workshop dates. The other thing, like some of the, there's an issue like next Easter holidays because Easter and Anzac Day are all 1 week. So we're kind of confined to trying to fit around things like that. And as we get to know you and talk about that, sometimes we might say, well, actually, a Saturday might be a better day to do. So we'll work on that. The workshops being recorded, actually somebody asked us that before. What we were planning, Rosie, was for those few people who can't come because they're overseas for this workshop session, is we might look at setting up a bit of a webinar kind of session for when people are back. We just will work out something that works best for people. And what we will ask in the email is that people who aren't going to be here let us know when they'll be back, so that we could look at the logistics of what we could offer to support people who missed this workshop session. Has anyone got any other questions or anything that they'd like to know? I don't know. We haven't thought about recording the day workshops, to be honest. Yeah, I don't know. We'll think about that. Are the dates shown for the workshops going forward, you mean, or for the workshops coming up? Oh, I see, in October, right. So they will be the school holidays. We just need to work out what that will be. But yeah, we will do that as soon as we can. Of course, the stuff that is in the workshops will be added to the portal, so you won't miss out on that content. What you'll miss out on is the shared learning, and going forward those workshops will become quite important to help scaffold your project plan and develop those things around your project. So it's more about, and obviously, as we said, you know, life happens, and sometimes whilst the intent is we would like everyone to be at all of those things, obviously that's not practical for lots of reasons, but there is a a negotiation that we need to do if you can't come to too many of them, for example. Yes, Teresa. I mean, we've had that in DCL before. And I think too, you know, what we will be doing is adding videos of us, you know, explaining things in the portal via video, adding content, because what we want the learning to be as accessible as possible. Does anyone have any other questions that I perhaps didn't answer earlier on? Oh, actually, I haven't talked about, and I talked about in the earlier session, was we do have two different portals. So if you are part-time, and Jonathan alluded to this before, your sprints will say C1P, cohort 1 part-time. In the portal, you should have either C1F or C1P. On the front page, I've written, if you are part-time, you're in the right place. Please let us know if you're not. We will change you to the right portal, because what will happen is your assessment dates, if you are full-time, they come a lot quicker, for example. If you are part-time and it's supposed to be full-time, you'll miss assessments. So it's really important that you are in the right space. Yeah, I think it will become more clear, Mel, and I think it is, that's why we wanted to have this session. It is quite hard to get your head around, but if you start looking at the sprints in the portal, see, you know, see what they're asking you to do, and at this stage, just have a go. Like, start engaging in the material. There's quite a lot of scaffolding there. There's quite a lot of literature stuff that we've put in the Springboard resources for you to read, links to go to, there's articles. What has changed, and as one of our candidates pointed out, it's less cluttered, because instead of the media being in the bottom where it used to kind of all have all those things that you could go and watch, we've embedded them into the page. So when we say watch this video, it's as part of what you're reading, then the video is embedded, or we've put the references to the literature underneath the quotes that we're talking about, or the information we're talking about, to help that flow of information and make it, I suppose, more ordered and organised. Yeah, we haven't added those yet, Cobus. We don't do them in DCL in the beginning either. We kind of don't want to give you too much information overload. The assessment stuff will be ready for the workshops. It does look a bit different. It's not because it's competency based and it's based around the learning outcomes, but we will give you those in a couple of weeks, really. But we didn't want to kind of muddy the water too much, because there's so much to get your head around and it looks different to DCL, that we didn't want people kind of getting kind of swamped with information. Any other kind of questions? Please be, ask turn your mic on, or in the chat. If you think of anything after tonight, you think, oh, I should have asked, please ask us in Google Plus or email us. On Friday, you'll get the link to join Slack. Our plan is, and I'll try and hold myself to it, is that the email will go out by midday Friday, so you haven't left school yet and it's kind of hitting your inbox before you leave. Assessment deadlines, for example, we're going to make Sunday midnight, because I just think in my head it makes more sense if you know it's got to be done before you get to school on Monday, rather than trying to scramble and getting it done once you're at work and things happen. So we're just trying to make it clear and easy, I suppose logical as such. But if you find something confusing in the portal, it doesn't make sense, please ask us. That's what we're here for. Don't be afraid to go, look, I don't get this, or you've made a mistake. We've made a mistake. Let us know. We'll here to support you. Okay, so if there's no more questions, what we would like to say is have a look at the portal, get engaged with some of the learning, and get your hair around some of that. Certainly look at the Futures of Learning. It's a really nice article to read, Futures of Learning 3, and a really provocative video to watch. And so start engaging with that as probably the first sprint. The other two are lighter, certainly, because it's like create your e-portfolio. There's a few things to do around that. The Me, My Place, My Practice is a more reflective piece, and have a little delve into Futures of Learning, and just be ready to have. It talks about creating a bit of a summary of that for the workshops. We'll talk a little bit more about that next week, but it's just kind of, we'll work on some of that knowledge. So it's a bit of flipped learning, a bit of knowledge for the workshops. Okay, any last questions? Thank you all for coming, and really nice. We're really looking forward to getting to know you and working with you. And if you have any questions, please sing out, and have a great week at work. We'll see you soon.
Thank you very much, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye. Have a good night.